Pass rushers come in all shapes, sizes, and skill sets. Big ones, small ones, fast ones, strong ones. No matter what flavor you're looking for, you can find it here. I'm at the NFL Combine, obviously, which is where every single year the top players in college football converge to do team meetings, medical evaluations, and most critically for today's show, athletic testing. When it comes to the value of those physical measurements, the only thing that anyone can agree on is that nobody can agree on them at all. Does arm length matter? Does raw size matter? How about speed or bend? What is actually important here and what is not? These are all the questions we're going to attempt to answer today. So stick with me for today's show. Hopefully we all learn something together. And welcome, finally, to Indianapolis.
Chunks of me. You're a shark and I'm swimming. My heart still thumps as I bleed. And all your friends come sniffing. Triangles are my favorite shape. 3 points where 2 lines meet. Toe to toe, back to back, let's go. My love is very late. Till morning comes. Let's desolate.
So, to begin today's show, we might as well start off kind of measuring the elephant in the room here. Arm length. How much does it actually matter? TV pundits, coaches, and GMs like to emphasize every single draft season that the longer your arms are, the higher the likelihood of success as a pass rusher. But if you look at the top 10 edge rushers in pressures every single year for the last 10 years, and you look at the average measurables of those players, so essentially the average measurables of 100 of the best pass rushing seasons in recent memory, that arm length philosophy is kind of an exaggeration. In fact, all of the measurables tropes are a little bit exaggerated. The overall average measurables for those top 10 edge rushers were somebody who's 6'3", 262 pounds, with 33 3/8 inch arms, a 163 10-yard split, a 702 3-cone, a 35-inch vert with a 120-inch broad, and an overall relative athleticism score of 8.77, which is good, very good, I would even say, but not necessarily elite. Like, this is not a freakish athletic profile at all. And even when it comes to just arm length, 33 3/8 inches is only 46th percentile among all edge rusher prospects in the last 2 decades. That's what Joey Bosa measured in at, as well as Ryan Kerrigan and Jabal Sheard, if you remember him from back in the day. So just zoom out real quick, we're looking at 100 of the best edge rusher productivity seasons in the last decade, and the average arm length for those rushers was considered technically on the shorter end. So knowing that fact, why do we care about length so much? My theory, at least, is because this entire time, length has been getting conflated with power. Most of those edges in those top 10 pressure seasons since 2015 are power-based rushers. They all have different heights and weights and arm lengths, but most of them still rush the same way, and that's just by running through a tackle's ribcage. And believe you me, there is nothing that an offensive tackle fears more than someone who can do that. If you've got power as a pass rusher, everything else will work better off of it. Speed, bend, finesse, all of that is going to be made more effective if you have that foundation of just pocket collapsing physicality. Listen to Teron Armstead speak about it in a room full of other college and NFL offensive linemen when I went down to O-line masterminds in Dallas 2 summers ago.
This is a power game. This is a power sport here in the trenches. So you can't stop power if you're not able to anchor against power. There's no reason for a D lineman to go to anything else. So as you train and as you work in your stance and in that first initial set, you got to continue to work and think stopping power, working that brace, without jumping out of your shoes, without lunging and all that. You can stop power. You can have an anchor. You got a chance in this league. It's not probably, it is the most frequent move you're gonna see. You're gonna see bull rush. I say over and over again, these guys learn all these moves on these bags. Shit look cool on Instagram. They first day of training camp, they bull rushing. So we gotta get ready to stop that.
Luckily for people like Ruben Bain, Joey Bosa, Ryan Kerrigan, and even more recently Aiden Hutchinson, length is not a requirement for having power. Now, that being said, it is nice to have long arms, don't get me wrong, and if you do possess length and power at the same time, you can do stuff like this, and it's going to look easy every time. But by no means can only rushers that have 34+ inch arms put together a highlight tape like that. Just watch literally any game of Bain's at Miami and you will see example after example after example of him bringing his power to bear. And mind you, he's going against tackles that are longer than him most of the time. But the dirty little secret about all of this is that just like in combat sports, long arms don't inherently make you a good striker. Quickness, accuracy, and technique do. Take this rep from Bain as an example. This is a sack he got against Texas A&M tackle Demetrius Crownover, who's also going into the NFL this year, by the way. And Crownover measured in with a verified arm length of almost 35.5 inches. That is almost a 5-inch advantage over Bain. But it didn't really matter because Bain actually knows what he's doing. Just look at how he gets out of his stance here. There's no false step with either his lead foot or his trail foot. He's just locked and loaded from the start, no wasted movement. And he's putting both of those feet into the ground to generate force. He's not just trying to get off with one leg. He's using every muscle he's got to get moving here. And the angle of his approach starts out super wide. That's also by design. He wants to show a speed rush first here and try to bait the tackle into following him out into deeper water. The goal with that is Bain wants Crownover's shoulders turned perpendicular to the line of scrimmage. Tackles are taught to be square to the line of scrimmage with their shoulders for as long as possible. That's going to help them maintain strength in their base. So Bain wants to compromise that base by getting him turned, and he does. Crownover took that bait hook, line, and sinker, and so now watch the punch here once those shoulders are turned. Again, this is all technique, and that technique is going to beat raw length every time. He's not just throwing his hand out there to keep distance, he is locked and loaded with that punch. The thumb is pointing up, the elbow is tight. And if you're wondering why that matters, while you're watching this at home, just feel the difference in your own power if you hit something in front of you with your thumb pointing to the side and your elbow away from your body, and compare that to how strong you feel hitting something with your thumb up and your elbow tight. You can feel the difference in yourself, and that's what Bain is feeling too. He is maximizing biomechanics to his advantage. So that punch is coming out fast and explosive, and he lands it first because of how fast it is, even though Crownover is so much longer than him. And from there, now that he's into the body of the tackle, he can really go to work. Bain's strength in his lower half and his leverage advantage take over, and he just drives and drives and drives. He stays under Crownover's pad level and just walks him straight back into the quarterback for a sack. That is what a great NFL pass rusher looks like most of the time. It's all about power up in the league. We love a flashy 245-pound speed rusher, but that's just rarely what wins in the NFL. Tackles are big and they are athletes at the professional level, and 95% of the time, you're not going to win with a speed rush unless you set it up first with power. And if you cannot do that, if all you have in your bag is speed and finesse, then you really just have nothing, because NFL tackles are going to sit on that speed rush all day long, and they're not even going to worry about your power. Vic Beasley, Barkevious Mingo, Shane Ray, the history of the NFL draft is littered with those guys that maybe had a little success here and there, but it wasn't long-lived in the league because they didn't bring anything to the table other than speed. Even Dwight Freeney, maybe the best speed rusher of all time, he still weighed 266 pounds. I don't think people realize that. Sure, Freeney was short, but he was big. As Nick Saban once said, boxing has weight classes for a reason. Big people, generally speaking, are going to beat the shit out of small people. It just kinda is what it is. Again, going back to those average measurables for the top 10 edge rushers in the last decade, it was 262 pounds, guys. Most of the edges that are significantly smaller than that just don't work. To me, the checklist starts with size and physicality. That is the very first box in the flowchart. And from there, they just need to have enough burst to threaten the tackle with speed, and enough technical proficiency to land a good punch, and enough fluidity and balance to be able to flatten around the corner and finish the rush. I'm not asking you to be Gumby. I don't need you to have Dwight Freeney's first step, as nice as that would be to have, obviously. I just need you to be functional in those areas. But the true foundation of the grade, the thing that is non-negotiable if you want to be an every down starter in this league, is that you have to have power. If you don't, do not pass go, do not collect $50 million a year. Now, all that being said, I do have a couple more notes to give on some other sort of kind of measurements that get brought up this time of year and how much they may or may not matter. But before I get to that, we're all going to pay some bills right now as a family because traveling to the combine for a week is expensive. So to the fine folks at Factor, thank you once again for sponsoring this video. If you don't know who Factor is or what they do, they ship fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep, and I personally have used them well over 3 years at this point, and I have never missed a month in that time. All of these meals can be heated up in the microwave in just 2 minutes. They all taste great. There's a ton of variety, so you never get bored, and there's dozens upon dozens upon dozens of different meal options per week, including lean proteins, veggies, and no refined sugars or artificial sweeteners. And you can even swap out select proteins now too. So if, for instance, you like chicken more than pork, you can do that swap. Whatever your preferences are, they've got it. And the best part is it cuts down on the amount of meal prepping and grocery shopping that you have to do every single week, which I know especially right now is kind of a pain in the ass. So if you're interested in getting meals that can be made fast, eaten conveniently, and still be tasty, all delivered right to your door, check out Factor by going to factor75.com/filmroomfdg. That's going to get you 50% off your order plus free daily greens. Again, that is promo code FilmRoomFDG at factor75.com. You're going to get 50% off and free daily greens. Thank you once again to Factor for sponsoring today's show. And with that, let's get back to it. Now, there is one more measurable I want to bring up today that maybe hasn't been discussed as much in recent years, but I think it's about to become very important as the NIL era continues in college football, and that's age. The NIL era has completely changed the age at which guys are coming into the league. They're making more money in college, so they're less incentivized to jump to the NFL early before their development is over. And that has spurned a raging debate about how old is too old for a prospect. And also, does age really matter when it comes to the contractual ramifications of an older prospect starting their NFL career when they're 25 years old? I caught up with Akeem Messidor, who is going to be one of these 25-year-old rookies and is one of the best players in college football, to get his perspective, not just on how NIL impacted his development for the league, but also, honestly, how his age might actually be a positive as a prospect, not a negative.
So when I got into college in 2020, no NIL. So you were very limited to what the university had to offer. Beyond that, you really couldn't do much unless, your parents had the money or could give you any money for you to, spend on these different things. I couldn't. I didn't have that luxury. So when we first started getting NIL, now I was able to outsource. Let's say our facility doesn't have a cryo, I could outsource, get cryo, get any type of extra D-line training, pass rush specialist. When it comes to nutrition, I can change the way I eat. I don't have to rely on everything the school has to offer. And that goes on from 22 up until now. You have a lot more available because you have money in your pocket that you can spend on. Obviously, everybody's not going to spend it the same way, but that's what I did.
So you feel like NIL actually enabled you financially to be more prepared for the NFL because you can invest more in your body and your skill set.
If it wasn't for NIL, I don't know if I would be in the same position because I outsource a lot. I have a lot of people who've helped me. So if it wasn't for NIL, I wouldn't have got some of the help that I got, which tremendously helped my improvement.
Just listening to that little bit, it's obvious to me at least that Messidor already treats football like his career, just like many other college players do now, because it literally is their careers. They're paid a lot of money to do a job, and that job is winning college football games. So to do that, they invest in themselves outside of the facility, just like NFL football players do, and that speaks to the maturity of an older college prospect that's played enough football in their life to understand the value of recovery and off-season training to develop skills over the summer, because coaches don't have time to do that during camp in the NFL, or even at the college level at this point. They're more focused on installs, not teaching you how to land a cross chop. That's what May and June are for on the calendar. So in my opinion, the value of drafting an older player is that you don't have to teach them anything. They just already know how to be a professional, how to do their job, and how to take care of themselves and be accountable. And sure, by the time Messidor's rookie contract is up and he's due for an extension, he's going to be pushing 30, but in the modern NFL, I'm not really sure teams care about that. GMs aren't thinking 5 years ahead, they're thinking 2 years ahead, maybe 3 at most. The league changes so fast now, and windows open and close in a matter of months, not years. So passing on a player who's better right now just because a younger player might be better in 4 years just doesn't really compute anymore. Not to mention, contracts at certain positions like edge are scaling so fast that if it takes a 20 or a 21-year-old prospect 3 full years to develop enough to be as good as Messidor is right now, then you aren't really getting any surplus contract value. By the time they're good enough to warrant a high dollar extension, well, it's time to do that extension. You burned almost all of their rookie deal just waiting for them to turn into a player that's worthy of paying. So you don't really benefit from them being on that cheap rookie contract. Meanwhile, an older player that's good right now, like Messidor, as long as he stays healthy, which, let's be honest, there's some real concerns there, I'll admit that. But still, if he stays healthy, we know he can contribute immediately. We know he will provide surplus value. And ultimately, that is what GMs care about, because that benefits them right now and keeps them employed. When in doubt, decision makers are going to default to whatever option is more likely to give them job security. And in the modern NFL, where contention windows are much, much shorter, and even historic dynasties can seemingly end overnight, the best way to ensure job security is just drafting good football players, no matter how old they are.
At the end of the day, after doing this deep dive and all the work that went into it, I've really come to believe in 3 things. And this goes for both defensive linemen and offensive linemen. So feel free to use it to fuel your Will Campbell arguments if you want to. Number 1, age is just a number. Number 2, power still is and always will be king. And number 3, function matters more than form.
After all, a player with a skill set will beat a player with talent if the player with talent doesn't have a skill set. However, this is a large however, if the player with talent develops a skill set, well, now you're fucked.